Right, so first thing, great to have Erik Horve with us here, and Ryan Groves, the guy who was running Body Track Golf for a long time, and Ben Ball, our marketing manager. Erik, tell us about where you're working and how you got involved using pressure mapping incorporating into your teaching structure.
Well, I've been in the Southern California area for quite some time. I was a director of my own golf school out at Tustin Ranch Golf Club for 21 years. Just recently went out on my own for the last 2.5. Been using Body Track. I mean, you introduced it to me, basically, you and Jake, probably, I don't know if it's been 10 years, but the old green mat was the first one I have. And I think I cut the wires off the old green mat after a while. I think it was actually the mat in front of my office door for a while after we upgraded to the new one. So that was kind of cool. But I've been in Southern California 5 years, been coaching here. So, but that's Body Track was presented to me by you at some point in the past. Can't remember how many years, but it's been a great technology for me. That's for sure.
Ryan's got a bunch of questions he wants to ask you, Erik.
So here, Erik, longtime coach, and obviously you coach, the gamut from somebody who just picked up the game or a junior all the way up to very accomplished players. Can you give us sort of the order in which is it going to be, how we hold on to the club and then sort of how we move? Like, give us your order of where you sort of start diagnosing people.
I have a joke with my players and my staff that, I mean, obviously historically as a PGA professional, we go right to the grip, stance, posture, those kind of things. Of course, those are going to be extremely important, and I'm never going to overlook those. But I have to be honest, I have a joke with my players that, I don't really care if you hold it like a ham sandwich for a minute, but we need to be able to find the low point of the golf swing. And, that's one of the things that Body Track has really helped my players do, is when my number one thing is being able to get the club to bottom out where we need it to bottom out before we can create any type of consistency. I think it's important that we check the bottom of the golf swing. I've said this to Terry over the years. We need to check the bottom of the golf swing before we can check the top. So the bottom of the golf swing to me is the reaction that the feet are having with the ground. And in turn, then what is that doing to where the club reaches the ground? And if I can't get a player to consistently get the low point to be where we need it, which, most golf professionals will tell you needs to be in front of the golf ball, then I really don't have any reason to start anywhere else.
Wow. It's funny because Ryan and I and Ben were talking to Chris Foley from Minneapolis, and I'm not blowing smoke up your pipe. I mean, like, I've been following you from the get-go, and the thing I love about the way that you instruct, you bring it down to the real. I mean, like, a lot of guys talking about alpha, beta, and everything, and you understand all that stuff, but you interpret it and explain it in such a way that I can understand it, and I feel that's essential. How do you feel about technology? Is it getting complicated, and how do you break it down?
From my point of view, all the tech, I mean, I have a 3D system. I have a TrackMan, obviously a Body Track. The technology that I've always used or brought in, and I've tried some things that I don't use anymore. And Body Track has actually been the one thing that I've kept for this whole time and always go back to, and it's in my car or at my academies. Technology is for me. Technology is for me to measure what's actually going on in the golf swing with my students. It's not to inundate my student with all kinds of information so they leave the lesson tee confused. A lot of the information that I gather, whether it's Body Track, TrackMan, whatever I'm using, is for me. It's for me to be able to diagnose and set a game plan for improvement for my students. If I shared every piece of data, as you know, guys, with my students, my book wouldn't be as full as it is today. Yeah. But I know that when I'm measuring things, I'm not guessing, like we all say. Yeah. And so whether it's Body Track, whether it's my TrackMan, and I need the data, and the two go together. I mean, 2D video doesn't tell much to me anymore. It's funny is the technology as far as, 2D video from the beginning. We've all been using that for a long time now, to pressure mats and plates. When I work with my tour players, Esteban Toledo is a perfect example. Not a big technical guy, on the Champions Tour. When I got So he never, ever wanted me to show him a video of his golf swing. He just wanted to know where the pressure was going. So technology is for me to gather the information and to help my player.
Ryan, if you've had guys, you do a lot. You're starting to do a lot of stuff with tour guys. It's amazing, Eric. You know, Ryan. How many tour guys don't want to see anything except know where they are with their feet? I mean,
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I was spending a time with a Champions Tour guy, and he was great. But I'll tell you what, he had every thought in his head, just like a 15 or a 25 handicapper was. He was just that much better at getting these to move the, you know, club into the ball. But I mean, the kind of questions he was going and the wheels that were spinning, it's no different.
Eric, I'm going to ask you a kind of a controversial question because, you know, you've been there since the get-go. Have you seen a trace better than a linear trace for irons?
Have I seen a what?
A more effective trace than a linear trace for for good results with an iron?
No, not really. You know, I'm always searching for a linear trace. We call it, I think jokingly, you know, Jake Thurm over the years, and I still haven't met Jake Thurm personally. He's been at tour events. I've been at different things, and but we've chatted, we've gone back and forth, but we call it the Lin Dog. You know, we're looking for a Lin Dog, and if we can get somebody to be balanced throughout the golf swing, obviously everybody's not going to be that way. We're not going to try to get everybody to be linear, but I mean, yeah, of course. I think one of the best traces I've seen is Gary Hallberg.
Yeah,
and I think I've posted some things on Gary. I had an opportunity to work with him a little bit out at TPC Scottsdale, and it was just something he did naturally. But he just happened to be a great ball striker. So and we talked a little bit about some, you know, some setup pressure numbers, but other than that, it's a very, very linear trace. And those are the guys that are the most consistent and that can create a lot of speed too.
When did you hang out with Gary?
A couple of years ago, I did a little work with Michael Allen, pressure work with Michael Allen at TPC Scottsdale, and you know, all the guys hang out there, and he just happened to be there and had to get on the body track.
Well, funny story, and it's about you, not me, but I met Gary when I was 17 playing the Junior Orange Bowl. That's how we became friends. And we had Gary on the body track at Calusa Pines a few years back, and he was getting too deep into his heels.
That's exactly right.
And it was trail heel. And that's kind of an unusual thing, except when you see it in the touring pros. Most amateurs, as you have indicated, get too much in their toes, and then touring pros can get too deep in their heels. What did you do to try to get him not too deep into his trail heel?
Really, I mean, actually, yeah, Gary and I actually talked about that counterbalance, and he was excessive. You're right. Yeah. He was well into his right heel at the backswing.
His son's a pretty good golfer.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Can you guys?
Yeah, I've got some video of Eric on the mat as well. His son. Yeah, pretty cool. He can bomb him.
He can really. He's a good kid, good young man.
Yeah, he really is.
So, okay, so we admit, Ryan, you might argue that the linear trace isn't the optimal trace. I don't know.
You know, I think especially for the irons, right? I mean, if the greatest amount of dispersion you have in that trace is going to add to ball dispersion. You know, so you know, I would say that in driver, you know, there can be much more variation. You're trying to do a completely different thing, but definitely, you know, the linear trace in the ability to strike the irons properly and control low point, you know, because that's effectively what we're trying to do, trying to make the best, most efficient strike possible. Linear trace is the best, most efficient trace for that.
Eric, what tell me about your academy.
I real quick on that. Real quick on that. I totally agree with that. There's obviously going to be different traces for driver when we're trying to create power and speed. Obviously, the backing up with a driver if we're trying to create distance, or we trying to go linear with everything. I'll give you an example with Esteban. He has one of the best counterbalances that I've seen. He's perfect into his trail heel on the backswing every single time with his irons. When we started 7-9 years ago, working to get him on the Champions Tour, he had to go through Q school, and he is on the PGA Tour. but he had such a game that he made a lot of money playing golf on the PGA Tour. When we were on the body track and saw his counterbalance was amazing. His backswing pivot was perfect. He was really, really heel toe, but he would never get off the brake. So he would stay on that brake, stay heel toe for too long, and he wouldn't be able to control the face. So as soon as I explained that to him, and we did some drills to get him more from his counterbalance into his lead foot and get him off that lead accelerator, that lead brake, and got him back into his left heel, he was able to control the face. So, and it went linear, obviously. It went a lot more linear, and he started to win. So, not saying that's why he won. His short game's amazing. Yeah. There's a lot that goes into winning on the PGA Tour at any level. But that's kind of why when I saw that happen at the high level, I'm thinking, you know what, why not try to get everybody to hit their irons that way? Driver's a little different story.
Well,
for sure.
Arguably, I feel like I know you like a son, kind of. You're so young, but I've been looking at the long driver traces. We just posted something with Justin James, and a whole bunch of people sent me a bunch of information. Can I see the data? Can I see the data? Well, it's a Z trace, a Z trace, and they wanted to see the torso and the spine, and I said to them in a private messages, if you can get to 100-degree shoulder turn, I'll send you that information with your lead arm straight. I'll send you the information because I Ryan's laughing because I don't think his information is all that relevant to the average human being.
Right. We were at the PGA show 2 years ago, and Justin was working with his coach, and it was Malaska. And they wanted, we just need a place to hit. I'm like, hey, come on over. You can come to the booth. And he could only hit hybrid because hybrid flew all the way across the range.
Okay.
So he was getting well in excess of 2 times his body weight vertical into his lead foot for that braking system with a hybrid and hitting it the 300 yards across into the Callaway tent at Orange County National. And you're right, it is awesome stuff to see, but it's kind of like, do you really care how an IndyCar driver accelerates into turn 1 at Indianapolis 500? Because it isn't that way when you get on your Chevy getting onto the interstate.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, Eric, so you brought up something that actually the only guys I talk about are with Ryan and Jake. Big cars got big brakes, and I always look at those Porsches and all the Ferraris and Maseratis down in California. There's so many of them, but they got those beautiful red brakes, most of them, those red, massive brakes, but they can accelerate fast. Yeah. You're going to have to stop fast. So the question here is, what's been your discovery with regards to braking properly on the lead side, all that timing and the timing thereof? Any comments you might want to share to everybody there?
Well, I think it's important that my players need to understand that, good players, good ball strikers, power hitters too. It's the timing of when they get the pressure to the lead side. Right. I think it's very important that you get it there at the right time. Yeah. So you can brake. If you don't get it there at the right time, you're not going to be able to brake and accelerate and create that angular velocity in that lead side. So I think it's the timing of when you get the pressure there. And you've been nice enough to share some information with me over the years and what some of the best players do. Jake's shared some stuff with me, and I've shared some stuff with my guys and my friends. But the best players they're getting to the lead side at a certain time. That's why we have checkpoints on the body track. Yeah. Where we're looking for things to be at certain times. And if they get that there at the right time, I think the acceleration kind of takes care of itself.
Well, I have a question there with you and Ryan, this is a question for you both is, with regards to the Justin James, he's one of the few long hitters that I've actually, I've got a couple of guys, Lisa Longball, Troy Mullins, we looked at a lot of that stuff. Troy Mullins is the only long ball hitter, in my opinion, that's got real sustainability because she doesn't have a Z trace on her driver. She actually is strong enough on her lead side to keep the pressure there. And she has the right length of club where she doesn't have to jump to clear and get the dynamic loft that, in my opinion, which is all that you do when you jump is create more dynamic loft. I'm not sure with the excessive shoulder turn that Justin James and players like him have if you really need to create more dynamic loft by jumping. I'm not sure. I don't know. But the question through that is do you think that by backing up and trying to create dynamic loft, you're actually hurting the player? Because I know safety to you is probably, I only know of one other pro that promotes safety more than you, or as much, and that's Jake.
Yeah, no, I'm real careful with my players, and just from research and studying and talking to, I've got a real good buddy that's an orthopedic surgeon. We talk about this, and he's also a good player and a client of mine. We talk about this a lot. Anytime we put that much pressure and weight on the trail foot, we're putting so much pressure on the lumbar spine, which isn't designed to rotate. We got to rotate, as you guys know, through the thoracic. The more pressure we put in the lead side, we take the pressure off of that lumbar spine. And I've had students who have lower back pain, as we all have. As soon as we teach them how to get to their lead side a little bit more, I still think they can create the speed, but they stop complaining of back pain. And I'm talking about players that don't have, I even have a player that has a fused, lumbar region at 71 years old that I got him on his lead side a little better. He doesn't hurt anymore. And I'm not saying I'm no doctor, but I know what they told me and what's important. But the lumbar spine just is not built to rotate. So we can't be having people hang back and trying to create speed angularly to the left through impact on our right foot. It's just not possible.
And the other thing about Justin James, and this is based on just my own observation, and I could be wrong, but Justin James, in my opinion, of all the long drivers that I've seen, he's got the fastest lateral motion of any long driver I've ever seen. It can be over 500 centimeters per second, which is really, really high. And I don't put brackets into these things, but I've seen him. He has a huge lateral shift as well as massive rotational forces. That guy, seriously, I don't think there are too many people on the planet that could replicate that combination of lateral speed, rotational forces, and vertical forces at impact. Only Ryan Groves, who has the same height as him, could actually maybe even get in close. But I think you'd die in the process thereof. But
I want to see it.
Yeah, I want to see it. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about the about safety in your lesson structure. What do you do?
I mean, I basically touched on it right there. I'm real careful about the lower back. That's the biggest one. Okay. The lower back, I'm all about stability at impact for the face of the golf club. I do have some mid-handicap golfers I work with. I work with mostly competitive players of all different ages. But I'm always trying to stabilize the face at impact. So I'm trying to get the pressure in the proper spots at the right time. It's all about, to me, is saving the lower back and controlling the club face and putting pressure on the lead side at the proper time. Whether it's in P5 or whatever you want to call it, lead arm parallel in the downswing, to impact. Those are my checkpoints. To working on end range of motion with the lead arm. I work a lot on that with my players. It goes along with where the pressure is in the left side or the lead side. But it's lower back for me. Big time.
I have a question. It's kind of personal, but I think we're all to this. The only thing I've been able to really use to take from 3D, and I wish I could take everything from it because I like it. It's so much fun to use.
Yeah.
Is that I've been able to, I've come to the conclusion that if you can't get 30 to 40 degrees open at impact with the hips, you're probably not going to hit the ball well. And through our trials, and we have our own test site up here in Canada, I found that, and this is a question, it's just a bit of a preface. I found that if you can keep your lead elbow and lead knee in sync on the way back and on the way through, you have a better chance of obtaining that. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought of those two together, but I understand it when it comes to the golf swing. But yeah, you definitely, to me, it goes back to the pressure again. You can't get to the hips to where you just talked about getting them.
Exactly.
As easily if you're on your trail foot. You just can't do it. I'm big with when I like yesterday, I had a great example of a kid who gets a little bit slow under pressure in a tournament, and 2 under par going in with 4 holes to go and double bogeys a couple holes going in because he's starting to feel it. Just happened to him last weekend, and we got him out there, got him in there. And one of the things we always talk about is where his pressure. That's where we all started. So He's got good lead side pressure, but he slows down his core through impact under pressure. So I go with trail, shoulder, and hands moving at the same speed through impact. If we can get those things moving through with impact, then we're going to be moving around the left side a lot faster. And so what you'll see is after impact during the finish position is right shoulder is the closest thing to the target. So that kind of goes with the same thing you're saying. I look at the right shoulder and the hands through impact under pressure, especially. But he's already on his lead side, but slowing the core because he's nervous. Yeah. So, those things go together to me. I hope that made sense.
Oh, no, I get it. Ryan, I'm sure you got some questions on that one.
Well, I want to ask, and this is for both you and Hash, I love everybody's technology, right? And it doesn't matter what you have. You can have a focus band, and I want to see the data. You can have a TrackMan, you can have a Hack Mojo. Let me see it. More toys, the better, especially for the instructor. But if we're going to agree that you get basically got 3 power sources, right? You got some amount of lateral, some amount of rotational, some amount of vertical that combine to make the power you've got in your golf swing. I want you guys to talk about that lateral transition, because Body Track for me is the only one of the pressure devices that can give you that data of how quickly, how fast, the dynamics of that lateral transfer. How do you guys use those to showing, release factor and those kind of things in the golf swing?
Over to you, bro.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, so ask the question again. I'm sorry.
So how are you using the Body Track, since it has the metrics for lateral acceleration, to show using that? Everybody's obsessed with rotational. They're obsessed with the vertical, right? And we get those because those are sexy golf swings, right? Dustin Johnson has an amazingly cool golf swing to watch. Most of us can't do that, right? Most of us are not built that way, but we can all have a little bit, lots of us have a lot of lateral in the golf swing. So how are you using the Body Track and the velocity measurements in that lateral to improve people's golf? Well,
I'll start with the center of pelvis for me, and I try to explain to my players how I prefer the center of pelvis working in the golf swing. That would be where I use my 3D system, and that's, to be honest with you, I have that my swing 3D system. Yeah. I've used it, but to be honest with you, the only thing I really dial in on is how much is the pelvis moving. Yeah. Left and right, and my information is, and my research is that the tour pros are moving their center of pelvis 0 to 4 inches towards a target, from address to the top of the swing. So that means to me that there may be a little lateral shift off the ball, but I got a feeling that most of them are starting at 60-40 and shifting to 50-50. So the pelvis really isn't moving much. It seems to be moving off the ball. I speak from personal experience. When I was young, getting taught what I should do, and I'm sure that everybody on this call got taught, we got to shift to the right, shift to the left. And we do see the best players in the world shifting laterally into the right side. But I really key in when it comes to lateral movement and acceleration to the left, getting my players to the left side early in the backswing, almost into the P2, P3 position. They're increasing, at least I'm trying to increase. I try to get everybody, depending on the player and what their tendencies are, to start at least at 55 on the lead side. Yep. If they shift off the ball a little bit, I know I've still got control a little bit of the center of pelvis in relationship to the ball. And then I try to get them to get real early pressure into their lead side, and that controls the pelvis. So from P1, which is that setup position, into P3, I think that my players would probably tell you they go from 60 to 75. Then there's less time to move from P3 down into P7 or whatever you want to call it, impact.
Anecdotally, this little camera, it's an Intel camera called the RealSense. This is probably going to replace all 3D marker systems in the next little while. And we've been messing around with this and some other 3D software. It's pretty cool. And this company called KinetiSense out of Medicine Hat, Alberta, and they're using it for medical applications, but you can throw it around for golf too. And I'm not giving them a plug here, but they've narrowed down the algorithm so that the data in terms of the rotations and all the 5, they measure the head, shoulders, pelvic, knees, and ankles, much like Swing Guru.
Does it just plug in and face the golfer and go onto an app, or?
the USB,
How does it? Oh, geez.
USB, but it's literally the size of my hand,
Yeah,
and it
I
works
see it.
outside. And it's $300. So it only captures it 30 frames a second, so it doesn't have. But to your point, I can't see shit in 2D anyway. So what's the point if whether I got 240 or 1,000 frames a second? I mean, it's just a representation,
Right.
So, anyways, it's anecdotally, but not really, because that in conjunction with pressure mapping to me is the ultimate solution. It's just that I don't like putting on stuff to students. I never get it on right, and I never calibrate it right. You're
Oh,
more
there's the other problem. Yeah. So you kind of try everything. As you guys said, I've tried tons of technology, and then most of it is out the door after a while, unless it's not, if it's too cumbersome, it's too uncomfortable, it takes too long. Students are paying good money for an hour session or 2-hour session with me. I'm not gonna take half the time setting it up.
Question, Eric. We're going to we're trying different models during this pandemic, and one of the things that seems to be getting a little bit of traction in areas where we're trying it is where the golf pros are beginning to consider renting out their gear to students in a hitting bay, designating a hitting bay for those that just need some time to work on their own, that have a better understanding of the technology because they've been working with you for a little while, like a decade. And any thoughts how that might come about in the near future for people around the world?
I've thought of doing that myself with having a body track, my TrackMan, having all the the big screens on the walls that we have at our academy out at Goose Creek Golf Club. It's a great idea. I think it's a fabulous way to help coaches pay for their equipment, to be honest with you, and let people come out and use and rent and have practice stations, as long as somebody's there to monitor the use of the equipment. That's the problem, is understanding how to use it, how it works. There's got to be some education on that end.
Well, that's true, and that's the point. That's Ryan's and my job is to try to figure out, how can we. What we've seen so far is that it leads to more lessons, but different types of lessons. So instead of you working necessarily on the guy's swing or lady's swing, now you have a whole different type of a lesson where you might get the same amount of money, but now you're showing them how to use the technology. So it could double your theoretically. But you can also hand off that lesson book to your to one of your assistants, that part of the lesson where they're learning how to use the technology with an assistant. To me, I used to own a few golf courses, one at a time, but thank God I got rid of them one at a time eventually. But it's the first time in my life where I actually wish I still owned my golf center now, because if golf resurged. How big of an increase in golf playing are you seeing out there in California?
Oh, it's actually, I'm at 2 locations, but I've been staying in my Orange County location because I'm here in Orange County, Newport Beach, but because of the pandemic. But the golf course is completely packed every single day. The driving range is doing, and I'm not involved in the day-to-day operations of the golf course, but I've been talking to our director. The golf course is absolutely packed every single day. Every tee time's taken up till 6 o'clock at night. I mean, it's going to be 105 degrees here tomorrow. It's 90, 91 or 2 today. So perfect weather. The driving range is hitting numbers that they've never seen before in 26 years. So people are there. People have got masks. They've got a great system. And so I don't know what's going on in the rest of the world, but in sunny California here in the South, it's going pretty well.
Well, we're hearing the same thing in all parts of the world, and I'm pretty sure you might be getting a call from Ryan and I talk about a revenue share program for those other hitting bays you're talking about.
We've got a beautiful academy out at Goose Creek Golf Club where I coach. It's 2 indoor beautiful hitting bays, full speed cameras on the walls, big screens. My body track and TrackMan go with me wherever I go, so the other guys don't know the technology. I mean, they've seen me use it, but they don't use it all the time. But
expect a call.
I mean, imagine, especially in this COVID world, I've got some friends out in Southern California who basically they can't teach, right? There are only so many pros in the facility, only so many people, they're just sort of out. But, so we got to transfer into these, sort of online lessons. But imagine an online lesson where you had the body track data as well as the 2D, video of the swing, how much more effectively you could help somebody improve more quickly.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love that. So you got to have coaches. You got to have a lot of coaches on board with the technology for sure. But a lot of them don't take the time. My staff did. When I was at Tustin Ranch all those years when I first got the body track, I had 7 teachers working for me. So we were all on body track. I mean, they were all using it. Justin, all those guys they're not there anymore. And they've closed it down. I mean, I had that golf school for 21 years and they've closed it down because of the pandemic. Different management came in.
What did you do before the golf business? Because you're such an entrepreneurial spirit. What did you do? Like a lot of people to have 7.
I've always been in the golf business. I actually came out of college and ended up working in the golf industry for my first job as I've always played golf, obviously. And I grew up in Northern California and my mentor and golf professional is Moon Mullins. You may know him too.
Actually.
Moon Mullins. I know you're not that old, but you know, these guys are a lot younger than us. So.
Yeah.
Moon Mullins was my guy. I played on PGA Tour back and those guys back in the 70s. So that was I've always been into golf, played golf competitively. But when I got out of college, I got into working for Tiger Shark Golf Company down in San Diego.
Oh.
You probably remember them too.
Yes, Pat Simmons.
Yeah, and then I worked for Titleist for about 3 years, and I decided I ended up leaving Titleist, moving up back to Northern California with my wife, and Candace and I've been together since college, 26 years. So then started teaching. Gosh, in the early 90s again. Just started teaching golf and studying my butt off and doing what I could.
Well,
but yeah, that's kind of where I've been.
Well, I'm just going to say, because Pat Simmons had some innovative products with Tiger Shark. He had some really good stuff, actually.
He was the one that invented the large grip. Maybe you invented it, I don't know, but Simmons was he invented the wedge and all that stuff.
Well, we could go on and on about that guy because he's a pretty interesting fella. In fact, I got a name, one of his bags with my name on it. I was sponsored by Tiger Shark for a year when I was on a Canadian tour. But so in the 80s and 90s, when golf grew amazingly, in my opinion, and I was active then, we blew it. We blew it because we made the game too complicated. And I go back to your opening remarks, which are, if I remember correctly, Bandit, you can, where's your transcripts here? That you can't get around teaching the fundamentals, the grip stance, set up, backswing, downswing. You got to teach that stuff. But once you got kind of that stuff, then we go straight into the pressure mapping. And I think we blew it, me, not you. Our era blew it in the 70s and 80s when golf really grew by making the game way too hard to really figure out how to hit the ball on a minimal viable basis. Like, I think that's really where technology can help, where you get these guys into the hitting bay. They're embarrassed to go in there with an instructor, but they may be willing to go in there on their own, knowing what the key parameters are because there are a number of people. They've been studying, they work with computers every day, all day long. They know they get to this point, that point, and the results are usually good, validated by launch. That, to me, it seems, Eric, to me, is a faster way to learn.
Absolutely. I mean, why don't we verify things that are going on, verify the things that we know the great players have done in the past, and simplify it for each other and simplify it for our students. In my opinion, we're too busy as golf professionals arguing on who's right and who's wrong. But we are making it way too complicated still. And I think it did start back then. It did start in the 80s probably.
It did. It really did. It's amazing. And, I've been pretty lucky since social media got out there. I haven't been shut down too much, but I get the odd guy that tells me that, you're an idiot for trying to make it too simple. But I don't know. I think that if you don't make it simple, most people, like, when they start out, they'll quit. Because it's really, how do you begin to tell someone that, how to read a green and how to read the grass, I've always found the hardest thing for me, because I did teach, is how to show someone how to read a green. How do you explain, I can get you to hit it. And if a lady or a guy hits their driver pretty well, they're happy. They'll go play and they make the odd punt, they're happy. But how do you explain to a guy how to read a double breaking green? I just say, hit it straight. If it breaks twice, hit it straight.
Yeah, you can overcomplicate anything if you try.
Yeah, plus I'm at the age where my patience level is not exactly as high as some people. But
yeah,
Eric, I could, it's so good to see. I'm not cutting this off. I'm just telling you is that it's so refreshing to see. And talk to me about your most recent post. You had a guy with kind of an abbreviated trace, and you got it quite a bit extended. And you were talking about how this put him into a better position.
You talk about the 19-year-old kid. You and I sent some comments back and forth.
Yeah.
Young, good player. Been complaining of back pain for a long time, and I just started working with him. This is our second session. Was yesterday, and he just went up to the AJGA event up in Montana and tried to qualify and shot 2 over, but missed a few putts here and there. So we're going to be getting into some other things. But yeah, he was the one that was complaining about lower back pain, and he has for a long time. He's had some great coaches over the years. Worked with Randy Myers. He's been out, Sea Island and all these great spots. Now he's in our area, so I'm working with him. And he was the one that at position number 5 or lead arm parallel in the downswing had 74. I think it was 72 to 74% in his trail foot still.
Yeah,
he did a really good job from that point into impact, moving it over, but he was still well back on his trail foot right before impact. And to me, in my world and the way my brain works in the golf swing, that's where the lower back pain's coming from. With a 19-year-old kid that doesn't have major injuries, he doesn't have any surgeries he's had or any, as soon as we switched it up, all we did was talk about vertical pressure and getting to the lead side a little bit sooner, a different way to do it. Pushing, the different way to use the feet in the transition. The pictures that you're referring to, his 2 swings later, his position number 5 or lead on parallel was absolutely. I think it was absolutely reciprocated. It was switched. So now he had 72 to 74 in his lead, 23, 28, whatever it was. I can't remember the numbers in his trail foot, and his impact went from 72 late. In my opinion, he was late getting there. To 82, and then he got into almost 90 after impact into the exit. So, and his back pain in 2 weeks went away. He says, "I don't feel my back anymore." And I'm like, well, so it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of this call. It's all about that to me.
So can you be more specific? Because I want to hear how you did that, because there's a lot of ways to do it. And I'm fascinated to how you do it, how you got that.
Okay, well, it all started with a setup. He set up with, I wish I had his thing in front of me right now, but he started with probably 58 to 60% on his trail foot. Had no idea at his address position. So the first thing I did was move him to his lead side 60-40. We went live, we went biofeedback, we went live on my iPad, had the iPad in front of him. I told him to go 60-40 lead side, and he still was 50-50. Felt like he was standing on 1 foot, but he still wasn't there. So we got him finally to get to a point where he could get to 55 lead on his lead side prior to takeaway or move away. And by doing that, it enabled him to push. So all I had him feel from there was to push left with his lead foot, and that moved him right a little bit and got him back a little bit, which made it easier for him to get forward. That's really all I did. I mean, that was it. Didn't do it. Didn't talk. Didn't add too much information to it. Made him set up a little bit differently, and then kind of push off. Kind of like some of the guys in this body track world will call it skating. So, skating right.
A lot of terms come out of California that I don't quite understand, but I've been saying it since the beginning. So
skating, for crying out loud up where you are.
I don't know, boarding or something. I don't know. Some guy was telling me about keeping that, I call it trail heel down. And some guy called me up and said, we call it this and that. I don't give a shit what you call it.
It doesn't matter what you call it, man. We got to spice it up a little bit. Whatever we want. Let's just all write them down. We got a glossary.
Hey,
I used to have I had a coach call it a Fooism, because his name was Ming Fu.
Ming Fu, yeah. But I think the reality of what you've done has been so impressive to me, Erik, to watch you do all this stuff. And I got a lot of family down there in LA, and I always have. And it's a great place when I go visit down there. I just love it. But being from Canada, I'm not used to the goddamn traffic that you got in that highway, and I can't stand it anymore. It just drives me crazy. But I mean, depends on which side of the eye you're on, right? If you're on the rich side.
I'm in Newport Beach. I'm away from it. I try not to go anywhere near. I'm on the other side of PCH, Pacific Coast Highways.
Yeah. So
I don't.
I really don't have a lot to ask you more because I know that you're busy, and also too, you kind of said everything I think you needed to say there. But in your opinion, where are we going with all this? Like, you know, kind of what do you see coming down the road? Like, what's next? 3D on the camera, on the phone, I should say. What do you see with all?
You know, I have to be honest with you. I think you guys just keep doing what you're doing, because I mean, I've been doing this, as you all have, for 25 plus years, and technologies come and go, and I think 2D cameras are always going to be there. I've kind of gone away from it unless somebody really wants to, you know, split hairs with their golf swing where a position is and all that stuff. But the mat itself, you know, I'll just call it the mat. The mat is the one constant that for the last 10 years for me. And obviously my TrackMan's going to go with me too. So it's really, it's amazing how much my students have improved knowing where their balance is. I mean, it's the only connection is with the ground. The ground's not, I mean, I'm one of those guys that also believes the ground's not doing much. Your body has to use the ground. So the ground's just sitting there. We need to learn how to use it. And if we can use it, we can control the face. If the face of the golf club's under control and we can get our low point under control, guys are going to hit the ball further and straighter. They really are. So I think the technology, just keep doing what you're doing. But I will say, for the guys that do use it, and for all of us that are throwing stuff up on social media, when I'm throwing videos up, and I'm always questioning myself. I want to make sure everybody's out there questioning themselves. That's why sometimes I'll tag Hashimoto in there, and I'll tag him. I want to make sure that what I'm putting out there is accurate. And if I'm missing something, you know, I want to make sure that you call me on it, and you know, in a way that's professional. Or text me and say, dude, maybe we could look at it in another way. But I'm always learning, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding the technology, because even after 10 years, I'm still questioning myself sometimes on reading a vertical chart correctly, or making sure that I'm not spewing something out there to anybody that's not correct. So let's just make sure that we're all on the same page and helping each other out. But this, yeah, it's been my constant, that technology, that body track. So
that's totally cool. Ryan, you got anything? Eric, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
No,
Ryan,
you got it. I love it.
What do you got?
I really appreciate what you do, and I love the fact that you throw all that stuff up on social media and open it up. I mean, you know, having the discussion is more important than having the answer, I think, and I really appreciate you wanting to share all of those.
I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys very much. I appreciate everything you've done for me and taught me, and you know, assisted me in my career.
I guarantee you within the next 18 months, I'll be down there and bugging you. I may take a month off and go see some of my family down in California. It's time. We're overdue, bro.
Just bring your sunscreen.
Yeah. I bring my sunscreen.
I don't even wear it.
The trouble, hey, I don't know how you wear it, but the trouble with Newport Beach, we stayed a week down there. My son loved it so much. I didn't think I could drag him home, but he was only 12 then. Now he's about. If I take him when he's 16 or 17, I might not get his ass home because he thinks that's the best place in the world to play soccer. So I don't know.
Well, you know, it's funny. I saw that post you made when you were down here then, and you were literally, I can look out my window and see Catalina Island where I live, and you were on that soccer field where I used to drop my son off for junior lifeguards every year when he was young, and right on that soccer field, right on the beach with the grass field there.
Yeah, we still talk about that because he got into some pickup games there, and the kids were so cool, and they were so good. Yeah. And he said, I want to live here. I said, well, you know, get $10 million, and maybe we can rent something. You know, like. That's
right. Well, you got it. When you come out, you stay with me in campus. We'll take our beach cruisers. We can drive. It's literally not even a mile from my house. That little field that Ben was playing on.
We're all in, Eric. Thank you so much for doing this, and Ryan and Ben. It's been unbelievable. I think Brian's about to get even more crazy fun.
Thanks, guys.
Anything I can do, let me know.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
You got it, buddy. See ya. Out.
See ya.